Hello everybody. I know it's been a minute since I've done a video, but I wanted to take a chance to make a video about something that a lot of people stay away from and don't like to discuss, and it's just kind of like a taboo um, topic, and it is being a parent of a neurodivergent child, or a child with special needs, depending on what the condition is, but mostly neurodivergent children. And I think the reason why it's a taboo, it's because parents, you tend to fault yourself for anything that happens to your child, right? And the reason it happens a lot with neurodivergent children, and if you're not familiar with the term neurodivergent, is people that have a different cognitive skill set. Like in my case, I have attention deficit disorder with hyperactivity. So my brain is a little bit wired a little bit different than most people. Alongside my chronic insomnia and anxiety, so a lot of the things come hand in hand. Same thing with autism spectrum, which, that's one thing that people have to remember, that it's a disorder that manifests itself in a spectrum. So you see a little bit of everything, even though the clinic symptoms might be pretty standard. They express differently in each patient and at different ages. So the reason why I wanted to talk about this is because the first thing that every parent that wants to be a parent, that wants a child, the first wish that you make is, I don't care about the gender, I just want it to be healthy. That is the most common phrase I hear from parents about their new child or expecting a child, right? And what happens when that's not the case? And nobody likes to talk about that. I haven't seen any like videos, podcasts, corporate media talk about that. And the thing is, it is very challenging because most neurodivergent children start expressing their symptoms after they are 2-3 years old, sometimes older. So you have a set of parents that welcome into the world a beautiful baby, a healthy baby that started growing, started hitting the milestones. Everything was going according to plan. And sadly, something happens and things change. And now you have a whole different human being in your home and a whole new different set of circumstances. And that is a trauma. That's traumatic. But I think where people fail is, number one, they don't talk about it. Number two, they don't go to the grieving process. And number three, they don't move away from the denial and the guilt, right? So let's take point number one, which is, this is not what I was expecting. It's not what I wish for. This is not the child I knew, right? And that's why I say that talking about it is so important, because in a very real way, the trauma of receiving that type of diagnosis and what comes along with it also brings where did the child that I got used to, that was so bright, that was vivacious, that had a personality, where did this child go? And you have to grieve that. You have to go through the grieving process. People many times in life made the mistake of thinking that grieving is solely for when you lose somebody, when somebody passes on. And that's not the case. Grief is a very human emotion that we experience when you leave your parents' home to college, or because you got married, or you lost a best friend, or you had to move and change schools. Things like that, even objects, you know? And a lot of the parents get so caught up in the process that they don't make the time to grieve the child they lost, to grieve that year, 2, 3, 4 years where things seemed like they were completely normal and everything was on point, and it didn't turn out that way. If you don't grieve that process, you're going to keep carrying that trauma. And you're going to keep wanting to turn back time, turn back the clock, and get back to those days. And that is not fair for you or the child. So, yes, it is nice to keep mementos from that time and videos and stuff. But if it's just going to make you wallow in pity or sort of like resent the diagnosis or things like that, then it's not of any good use. And honestly, you have to go through the grieving process. That type of diagnosis is devastating. It's like a cancer diagnosis. They are devastating diagnoses where you have to go through a very lengthy process of acceptance of how am I going to tackle this. Again, the stages of grieving, that's plain and simple. The other point is denial. A lot of the times, parents, as a defense mechanism and to deal with the trauma, assume the attitude of, this is not happening, this is normal, she's just taking a little longer, he's just taking a little longer, it's gonna pass. I know a cousin, a co-worker, a mother-in-law, an auntie, an uncle that went through the same, and the kid grew out of it, and the daughter got better. And denial serves no purpose other than dig yourself even more in the hole. So that is one stage that is part of the grieving process that you want to try and kind of like get over that hurdle fairly quickly. And my last point, guilt. Parents see children as a reflection of their success, as a reflection of them as a person. It's almost an extension of who you are and how good you've done things in life. And it's very, very traumatic if you did everything that your doctors told you, what to expect while you're expecting told you, what your YouTubers told you throughout your pregnancy. You took your vitamins, you did your checkups, all of that. And still, you have a special needs children. So you fall into this game of trying to figure out at which point did you mess up, or your partner messed up, or where did it come from, or whose fault is it? And that again serves no purpose in making the situation better. This is another part of the grieving process that you kind of have to be realistic, manage expectations, and understand that these things happen. And at the end of the day, even if there was a finger to point at someone, something, somebody, it will still not do anything for your child or yourself and your healing process. So I think parents that have special needs children, neurodivergent children, need to coalesce together and talk about that, because it doesn't make you a bad parent to have all of those feelings, to have anger, to have guilt, to have denial, to have sort of like tolerance and sort of like, oh well, you know, it is a normal process. But you want to go down that path with other people that are experiencing the same or similar issues and can kind of help you, and that way you can sort of like work together. Because the more stable you are with yourself, the more at peace you are with yourself, the more you understand that this is nothing that you did, nor could you have done anything to prevent it. And even if you could, we're past that point. So the more you are at peace with you, once you finish the grieving process, then you can be proactive in helping your child, in making sure that they have everything possible to set them up to succeed in a world that it's little by little becoming more inclusive and coming to terms with the fact that we are not all the same, and that normal is a social construct that is very vague, because honestly, there is not like a cut and dry, this is normal, this is not. Yes, there are some outliers. There are some behaviors that you can pinpoint and say, yeah, that is not normal at all. But what I'm trying to say is, you live for your child. You live for your family. I live my life that way. I could care less what anybody thinks about me. If you're not financing me, if you're not paying my bills, feeding me, putting a roof over my head, I do not give the... I don't want to be rude, so I'm going to and keep that to myself. But I really do not care. I care about Sheila and what my needs are. And when you have a child, that has to be even more. Once you go through your grieving process, once you educate yourself, once you let go a little bit, once you realize that the people that make snide comments, that look, that this, that, you don't live with them. You don't have to live with them. They are totally irrelevant to your reality and your existence. That is a reflection of who they are. And it is not your job to educate them, to change them, to influence them in any type of way. Your only priority is making sure that you are equipped as much as possible to then equip your child to be able to succeed and be happy and be healthy. And part of that as well is humbling yourself, knowing that you cannot do this alone. It takes an army of people. It takes professionals, because although you are the expert on your child, there are professionals that can see and intervene and see faces and see situations that you might not be able to see because you're too close to the situation, or you might not be able to address because you are not a professional. You are not trained on that. You do not have the skill set or the knowledge. So having a neurodivergent child, or even adult, even a partner, can be very overwhelming. And that's why you have to take care of, number one, look for therapy, look for support groups, look for building a toolkit. So when you feel like you just want to throw your hands in the air and hide from the world and give up, you know that you can tap into that toolkit and make things better. Anyhow, those are my humble 2 cents. And if you like this video, please comment and like, and I'll make sure that I'll continue to make more if people enjoy them and they find some utility on them. Take care. We'll be talking to you guys soon.